try to speak about this volume. Hopefully your tea break biscuit's going to sustain you for the next 15 minutes. So I'll try and keep it brief. Okay, so a number of you have been at our engagement events. I recognise a number of faces around the room, so a lot of you will know about the Trust. Just very briefly to say, the Trust was established in April 2013 with £50 million given to us by the big lottery. And the trust deed for our Trust makes it clear that the Trust is a funding and influencing body, and today really I'm talking to you about funding, and specifically about funding dementia-friendly communities in Scotland. So the amount of money that we're going to put into this first phase is £3 million over the next 3 years. Of that 50 million that we have, 25 of it is allocated to the dementia programme. And so we have committed a fair amount of our annual allocation towards dementia-friendly communities, because as we've seen today, the benefits can be absolutely huge for people who are affected by dementia. So that just tells you what I'm going to say, but we'll just skip that one. Trust in its role. So when we talk about people affected by dementia, what we're meaning is people with any type of dementia, regardless of where they live in Scotland. So geographical area, location, are they in their home, are they in a care home or a hospital? And secondly, any person who cares for and supports a person with dementia and isn't paid for doing it, i.e. they're not a professional. And our vision for Scotland is that we have a Scotland where all people affected by dementia are valued as full and equal citizens, are able to live good quality lives and receive the right support when they need it. I just want to make a comment on what Jim said earlier about human rights, because our own approach is very much human rights based. And another comment that someone made around one of the discussion tables was about how we also need to look not just at dementia, but at the older people's world more generally as well, and that seems to have come out in a few things today. Now, not all people with dementia are older people, completely recognise that, but the majority are. And one of the United Nations principles for older persons, because it's not just about a dementia charter. Dementia charter is fantastic, and I agree with Ivy, we need to see those rights becoming real. But there are other things as well. It says older persons should be able to live in environments that are safe and adaptable to personal preferences and changing capacities. And we need to cling on to every human rights instrument we possibly can when we're dealing with these issues, because people have rights in various ways. And hopefully that's some work that we will do over the next year that will equip people and educate people in those kind of rights. So our mission is to facilitate and support transformational and sustained improvements in the quality of life, well-being, empowerment and social inclusion of people affected by dementia. Transformational, we want to really see things change over the next 9 or 10 years. When we talk about transformational, it's in the big sense, not just in relation to dementia-friendly communities. We're talking about every single stage of life. And we all know there's been investment in different areas, fantastic investment in post-diagnostic support, in diagnosis. There are some other areas where there's been lesser investment and lesser influencing going on, and we need to work around all of those. So what you'll see is, as our funding proposals come out, they're going to hit at all of these areas. Because if we don't hit all of these areas, we're not going to see a transformation in Scotland. And all of you obviously have a part to play, some of you in all of those areas, and some of you specifically in others. Sustainable, we want the little things to grow into great big things. So that idea that is in your mind right now about a dementia-friendly community somewhere starts off like this, eventually becomes like this, and then others can come along and learn from you about how they can do it. So when we're funding, we'll be talking with those people we fund about sustainability right from day one, so that we can support and help people. And it's not just about money. Sometimes it's about money, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's about working in a way that right from the beginning ensures that things will be more sustainable in the long term. So this first phase of funding in dementia-friendly communities, our aims are to make sure that more people are aware of and understand more about dementia through our dementia-friendly communities, that people whose lives are affected by dementia will be more able to find the help and support they need and at the time they need it. Because someone had mentioned earlier on, some people say, well, I didn't need support in the first 6 months, but I need it now. Is that support then available for them? And can the community help them source that support? Also, we want to make sure that people affected by dementia are included more in their community and able to be more independent and can exercise more choice and control in their lives. And everything we've heard here today points towards that. That's what everyone is driving towards. More empowerment, more independence, more support when it's needed. We also plan on not just funding communities, but also to make sure, and this ties in very much with what Richard was talking about earlier on this morning, that those findings from communities and learning is actively shared. So those communities we fund, we want them to be involved and actively involved in sharing findings and learning. And we will establish and work with others in establishing forums in which people can do this. And that's so that we see a real movement towards improving and developing dementia-friendly practice across Scotland, and also so that others can learn from Scotland. There's a lot of countries watching what's going on here. I had mentioned earlier that I used to work for the Older People's Commissioner for Wales, and I would say that Wales is probably quite far ahead in its thinking around older people and older people's rights, but they're nowhere near where Scotland's at in relation to dementia. And so there's people watching. And so we want to make sure that we can let people have the opportunity to show and tell about what it is that they've been doing. We also want to support the development of relationships and mentoring and learning between the communities that we fund, because that's really important. And as you've seen today, the communities that presented are all very different. They all have slightly different approaches, and that's a good thing. So someone from Dundee may say, oh, I can do what they're doing down in Glasgow, but someone in Inverness may say, but I relate more to what's going on in a community in Dumfries. And so we need to make sure that we're actively partnering people up so that they can learn. And that might just be exchanging email addresses between people. It might be as simple as that. Or it might be something bigger, like holding events around certain types of community. And then what we want to do is use the evidence that comes out of this to identify what the longer term support needs of communities are in Scotland. Because as we move this first phase forward, we hope to then inform a second phase of funding so that all the way through the existence of the Life Changes Trust, there will be dementia-friendly communities growing and developing. So what are we going to fund? All of this stuff's on our website because we have the call open for funding just now. But for us, the key things are what people affected by dementia have said to us. And what they have said is what they want from a dementia-friendly community is, I want to have a significant say in how my community is run. I want to be included. I want to feel safe, listened to, valued and respected in my community. And I want to know that I've got a community of support round about me. And also, really importantly, I want to be able to do the things that matter to me. They might not matter to someone else, but they matter to me. So obviously, not one person said all these things in one sentence, but this is what we have gleaned from our conversations with people affected by dementia. And so these are the things that we're going to test applications against. You know, is it likely that an application is going to, an application from a community is going to lead to this? Yeah. So we're looking at, yes, communities that will change the environment in which people live, and that's very important in making things dementia friendly, but also what quality of experience and outcomes are the people who are part of those communities going to have. And so this is really important to us, and you'll see on the application form that we will ask people to demonstrate, well, how will you make sure that people have a significant say in how your community is run? How are you going to do these things? And some of these questions are not that difficult to answer, to be honest. So who can apply for funding? Well, we're taking a very broad definition of community, because although we agree that most people live in a locality and that becomes very important, as we see more generations of people coming through, I'm thinking especially like my generation, the locality may not be their first place of community. It may even be an online community. So what we're doing is we're taking a very broad definition of community, which I'll explain in a moment. But the first lot of communities that really we're talking about is people, streets, villages, towns, regions. You know, we'd accept applications from people who want to have dementia-friendly streets, towns, regions. Also, who can apply also applies to organisations. So we've heard today about, and Catherine was speaking, she was talking about it's like a pathway in the forest she was talking about, and it says welcome, come in. And what we want is to see this in all of these areas. We want to fund things in as many of these areas as possible. Now these may be included in, say, a region's application. A region may apply as a consortium and saying all these businesses are going to come in on this with us. But we want to see organisations like this demonstrating how they become dementia friendly and how people feel welcome when they go to any of these places. So we've already had people phoning up and they're saying we're a church-based group. We want to know how to become dementia friendly. We're hairdressers. You know, how do we become more dementia friendly? How do we do it? And it may be that if we have applications in particular areas, we might say you benefit from talking to them because they've applied as well. Why don't you get together and talk about how you could make not just your organisations, but what about your whole street? So there's a lot of mixing and matching that we'll look at along the way, and so we're looking for applications from these kinds of organisations. And any other form of community. Could be a walk-in group that wants to become more dementia friendly. It could be someone says, I want to create an online community that becomes dementia friendly. So we're leaving it wide open for people to come with real ideas and vision, as well as the more obvious applications. So how do you apply? Well, the maximum award that's available is up to £150,000 a year for 3 years. Now that doesn't mean to say the funding will necessarily stop at 3 years, but that's the initial phase of funding. The application form is on our website, which is outlined there, and applications will be accepted between the 29th of September and the 24th of October. And if anyone wants to have a chat, if anyone wants to find out more, if you've got questions when you're filling out the form or anything, please call me, that's my number there. I will be here over lunchtime, but then unfortunately I've got to go back to the office after that. But we've already had people phoning up, and it's quite interesting. Someone will phone up and say, I've had this idea and I'm just not sure. And as you talk, you can just see that the idea is formulating more and more and more. Yeah, we'll put in an application. You know, so don't think that your idea may not be something we would look at. So we expect a certain amount of commitment from those we fund, not because we just expect it, but because it's important to building something that's going to become robust in the long term. So from day one, we would want people that we fund to be committed to robust evaluation that the trust will fund. So we're asking people to build that into their proposals. And for people who don't know how to build that into the proposal, we will support you with that. So evaluation from day one. Also, a commitment to building relationships with other dementia-friendly communities. Now that doesn't mean to say you're going to have tea and coffee with people twice a week, but it's just we want to build a network that will then tie in with other networks. And perhaps we could be looking at a Scotland-wide network for that brings everything together. So a commitment to building relationships. A commitment to sharing collective learning. And this is really important, especially as new dementia-friendly communities come along, or people who are interested, because the mentoring relationship that can take place between those more mature dementia-friendly communities is so important when someone's sitting there thinking, how on earth do I deal with this? Don't know how to do it. And then a commitment to the ongoing learning and development of the community. I think, like Sandra had said earlier on, we don't ever want to get in a position where we think we've arrived. You know, we are dementia friendly, there's nothing more we can do. I think whilst you can describe a dementia friendly community as having become mature, there's always more learning, and there's always more development as time goes on. And so we're looking for a commitment to learning and development in our funded communities. How we make decisions? Well, all applications will be shortlisted, and then the decision panel will make the final decisions, and it will be people with dementia and carers who will help us make those final decisions as to whether we should fund dementia-friendly communities that have applied or potential communities. And we hope that all funding will be in the bank for those dementia-friendly communities by February 2015. So it's just taking it back, just reflecting on who it is that we're doing this for. We're looking for diverse communities. We're looking for new ways of learning about dementia-friendly communities. And what we're looking for most of all is a whole change in attitude where instead of talking about the challenge of dementia, we talk about the opportunities that dementia is bringing to us. Because a little silver thread that runs through a lot of what people have said today is that if you get it right for people with dementia, often you're getting it right for everybody else. You know, I turn up when I've been on the train thinking, where's the toilet? And look at the signs and think, I don't know where I'm going. You know, there's all of these things that benefit the community as a whole. So just in closing, I'd just like to encourage you to think with those that you meet with on a day-to-day basis about how it is that you will engage with, shouldn't use that word, how you will talk to people who have dementia and carers about any application that you're putting in. And how will you bring them in on that process right from day one, before pen even goes to paper. And I think if that's done, we'll see some really innovative and really interesting applications coming into us, and hopefully we'll see some new perspectives as well as growing and development of existing perspectives on dementia-friendly communities over the next 3 years.